Forget everything you've heard about needing 2,500 steps a day to keep your legs strong. What if I told you there's a simple movement you can do without even getting out of bed that may do more for your leg strength after 60 than a whole afternoon of walking? Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what this movement is, how to do it safely, and why so many people over 60 are quietly switching to it before their feet ever touch the floor in the morning. Here's something nobody really tells you when you hit your 60s. Your legs don't just get weaker because you're getting old. They get weaker because of a very specific, very sneaky process that starts happening in your muscles, sometimes as early as your 40s, and speeds up quietly in the background for years before you ever notice it. One day you're fine getting up from a low chair. The next it feels like your knees are arguing with you. One day the stairs are nothing. The next you're gripping the handrail like it's the only thing standing between you and a bad fall. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens in silence. And that silence is exactly why so many people don't take action until it's already a struggle. Let me tell you about a woman named Carol. Carol was 66, active, loved her garden, walked her dog every morning without fail. She thought she was doing everything right. Then one winter, she noticed something small. Getting up from the couch took a tiny push with her hands. Just a little extra effort. She brushed it off. A few months later, she caught herself avoiding the stairs at her daughter's house, taking the ramp instead, telling herself it was just easier. She still walked every day. She still felt like she was doing the right thing. But her legs were quietly losing strength anyway, because here's the truth almost nobody talks about. Walking is wonderful for your heart, your mood, and your circulation. But walking alone does very little to rebuild the specific kind of strength your legs need to stay powerful as you age. That's the part that surprises most people. And it's exactly why we need to talk about what actually works. This is where the bed exercise comes in, and I promise you, it's simpler than you think. But before I show you exactly how to do it, I want you to understand why your body responds to it so well. Because once you understand the why, you'll actually stick with the how. As we get older, our muscles naturally lose some of what's called fast twitch fibers. Think of these as your power fibers. They're the ones responsible for quick, strong movements like catching yourself if you trip or pushing up out of a chair without using your hands. Slow, steady walking mostly uses your endurance fibers, the ones built for going the distance, not for power. That's the missing piece. That's why you can walk 5,000 steps a day and still feel your legs getting weaker underneath you. You're training endurance, but you're not training power. And power is exactly what keeps you steady, keeps you independent, and keeps you confident on your feet. And here's something that might make you look at your daily walk a little differently. Think about the last time you walked around the block or through the grocery store or down a hallway at home. Notice how your knee moves during a normal step. It bends only slightly, and your body weight shifts smoothly from one leg to the other in a rhythm you've done a million times without thinking about it. That rhythm is efficient, and efficient movement by its very nature doesn't demand much from your muscles. Your body has gotten so good at walking that it barely has to work hard to do it anymore. That's wonderful for endurance and heart health. But it also means walking rarely challenges your muscles enough to make them grow stronger. To build real strength, a muscle needs to be asked to do something a bit harder than what it's used to. That's simply how muscle works at any age. And that's precisely the gap this bed exercise is designed to fill. Now here's the part that might genuinely surprise you. Research on aging and muscle health suggests that some of the most effective exercises for rebuilding leg strength in older adults aren't the ones that require a gym, fancy equipment, or even standing up. They're simple, controlled movements you can do lying down using nothing but gravity, your own body weight, and a few focused minutes. Experts who study healthy aging often point out that consistency and proper muscle activation matter far more than intensity. You don't need to strain. You don't need to sweat. You need to activate the right muscles the right way, regularly. So let's talk about the movement itself, because I know that's what you're here for. It's called a bed-based straight leg raise combined with what's known as an isometric hold, and don't worry. That's just a fancy way of describing a movement where you tighten a muscle and hold it steady, without bending the joint. Here's how it works. While lying flat on your back in bed, you gently tighten the top of one thigh, the quadriceps muscle, keeping your knee locked straight, and slowly lift that leg about 6 to 12 inches off the mattress. You hold it there for a slow count of 5 to 10 seconds, feeling that muscle working the entire time, then lower it down with control. You're not throwing the leg up. You're not rushing. You're moving slowly with intention, the way you'd carefully set down something fragile. Why does this simple movement matter so much? Because it directly targets the quadriceps, the very muscle group responsible for helping you rise from a chair, climb stairs, and catch your balance if you stumble. It's often one of the first muscle groups to weaken with age, and it's also one of the most trainable even later in life. And here's something truly encouraging that a lot of people don't realize. Research on older adults has repeatedly shown that muscles can respond to strength training at any age. It's never too late to start rebuilding. Your body doesn't stop listening just because you've had a few more birthdays. But there's a detail about how you breathe during this exercise that changes everything about how effective it is. And most people get it completely backwards. I'll walk you through exactly how to breathe, when to do this exercise for the best results, and the small adjustment that makes it dramatically easier on your lower back, all coming up in just a moment. Because doing the movement wrong, even slightly wrong, can mean doing it for weeks without seeing the benefit you deserve. So stay with me, because the next part is where this all comes together. Let's talk about breathing, because this is the detail that separates people who see real results from people who quietly give up after a week. Most folks hold their breath during a leg lift, almost without realizing it. It feels natural, like you're bracing for effort. But holding your breath actually raises the pressure in your chest and can spike your blood pressure temporarily, which is exactly the opposite of what we want during a gentle strengthening exercise. Instead, breathe out slowly as you lift the leg, like you're blowing softly through a straw, and breathe in as you lower it back down. This one small shift keeps the exercise calm, controlled, and safe, and it also seems to help the muscle contract more effectively, according to experts who study movement and rehabilitation. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but this is exactly the kind of small detail that makes the difference between an exercise that works and one that just wastes your time. Now, when it comes to how many repetitions to do, I want you to forget the idea that more is always better. This isn't about pushing until you're exhausted. A good starting point that many physical therapists recommend for older adults is 8 to 10 slow, controlled lifts per leg. Once in the morning before you even get out of bed, and once again in the evening before you settle in for the night. That's it. 2 short sessions, a few minutes each. No special clothes, no equipment, no getting on the floor, no worrying about your knees on a hard surface. Just you, your bed, and a few focused minutes that quietly add up over weeks and months. Here's a question worth sitting with for a moment. Why does doing this first thing in the morning matter so much? It's because your muscles and joints tend to be at their stiffest right after you wake up, especially as we get older. Jumping straight out of bed and into your day without any gentle activation can be part of why that first walk to the bathroom feels stiffer than it should. A slow, gentle warm-up like this, done right there on the mattress before your feet even hit the floor, can help wake up those muscles gradually, so that first walk of the day feels smoother and steadier. It's a small ritual, but it sets the tone for how your legs feel for the rest of the day. Let me introduce you to someone else whose story might sound familiar. His name was Robert, 72 years old, a retired school teacher who loved his morning coffee on the porch. One more thing worth mentioning about timing. Some people find it easier to remember this routine by attaching it to something they already do without fail, like brushing their teeth or setting their alarm. If you do your leg lifts right after you turn off your alarm in the morning, and right after you turn off your bedside lamp at night, you're not relying on willpower or memory to keep the habit going. You're borrowing the strength of a routine you've already built over years. That's often the real secret behind people who stick with something long enough to see results. Not motivation, but a simple trigger that makes the habit almost automatic. Robert wasn't unhealthy. He wasn't out of shape by any stretch. But one morning, reaching for his coffee mug on a slightly higher shelf, he lost his balance for just a second. He caught himself on the counter. Nothing happened. No fall, no injury, but that split second scared him more than he expected. It made him realize just how much he'd been relying on his upper body strength to compensate for legs that had quietly grown weaker over the years, without him ever noticing the gradual decline. That one moment was his wake-up call. He started this simple bed exercise, nothing dramatic, just those few minutes morning and night. Within a few weeks, he noticed something. Getting up from his recliner didn't require that little push with his hands anymore. His steps up the porch stairs felt more solid, more certain, less like a calculated risk and more like something automatic again. This is exactly the kind of change that happens quietly, without fanfare, without a dramatic before and after moment. It's not about waking up one day and suddenly feeling 20 years younger. It's about noticing week by week that the things you used to worry about, a wobbly moment on the stairs, that hesitation before standing up, start fading into the background. That's what real sustainable progress looks like at this stage of life. And it's far more valuable than any quick fix could ever be. Now, I want to address something important, because safety always comes first. If you have any current injury, joint replacement, recent surgery, or a health condition affecting your hips, knees, or spine, please check with your doctor or physical therapist before starting any new exercise. Even something as gentle as this one. This video is meant to share general, science-informed lifestyle habits that may support healthy aging, not to replace personalized medical guidance. Your body, your history, and your needs are unique to you, and a quick conversation with a professional who knows your situation is always a smart step before beginning something new. There's also a common mistake I see people make with this exercise, one that can turn a helpful movement into an uncomfortable one. It has to do with what your lower back is doing while your leg is lifted. And if you get this wrong, you might feel strain in the wrong place entirely, wondering why an exercise for your legs is somehow bothering your back. The fix is incredibly simple once you know it, and I promise it takes less than a second to correct. I'll show you exactly what to watch for, plus how to gently build on this exercise over time so it keeps working for you even after your legs get stronger, all coming up next. And there's one more piece of this puzzle, something that has almost nothing to do with exercise at all, that plays a bigger role in leg strength than most people realize. We're getting to that too. Here's the mistake to watch for. When you lift your leg, your lower back should stay gently pressed toward the mattress, not arching up. If you notice your back lifting or arching as your leg rises, that's a sign you're lifting too high or lifting too fast. The fix is simple. Lower the height of the lift, slow the movement down, and imagine pressing your lower back softly into the bed the entire time you lift and lower. This keeps the work exactly where it belongs, in your thigh muscle, and keeps your spine safe and supported throughout. It's a tiny adjustment, but it changes the entire feel of the exercise, from something that might nag at your back to something that feels clean, controlled, and purposeful. Once this exercise starts to feel easy, and for many people that happens somewhere around 3 to 4 weeks of consistent practice, there's a natural way to build on it without needing any equipment at all. You can add a gentle ankle flex at the top of the lift, pulling your toes toward your face for a couple of seconds before lowering the leg. This small addition engages the muscles in your shin as well, which matters more than people think, because those muscles play a quiet but crucial role in preventing trips and stumbles. Later, once that feels comfortable too, some people gently increase the hold time at the top of the lift or add a few more repetitions. The key idea here is progression without pressure. You're not racing towards some finish line. You're building a habit that compounds slowly and steadily, the same way a small daily deposit builds into real savings over years. Now, let's talk about that other piece of the puzzle I mentioned, the one that has almost nothing to do with exercise itself. It's protein, and I don't mean anything complicated or restrictive. As we age, our bodies become less efficient at using protein to build and maintain muscle, a natural shift that researchers often describe as part of the aging process. This means that even if you're doing everything right with movement, if your meals are consistently low in protein, your muscles may not have the raw materials they need to actually respond and rebuild. Experts who study nutrition in older adults often suggest including a source of protein at each meal, things like eggs, fish, poultry, beans, lentils, yogurt, or cottage cheese, spread throughout the day rather than saved for one big dinner. This isn't about a strict diet or cutting out foods you enjoy. It's simply about being a little more mindful, making sure each meal has something that gives your muscles a fighting chance to respond to the work you're putting in. Pair that steady protein intake with good hydration, since even mild dehydration can make muscles feel weaker and more fatigued than they really are, and you've given your body genuinely everything it needs to make this simple bed exercise pay off. I also want to mention something about sleep, because it ties into all of this more than people expect. Deep restorative sleep is when much of your body's natural repair and rebuilding work happens, including in your muscles. If you're doing this exercise consistently but sleeping poorly, night after night, you may not feel the full benefit as quickly as you'd like. Simple habits like keeping a consistent bedtime, dimming lights in the evening, and giving yourself a calm wind-down routine can support better sleep quality, which in turn supports everything else you're working toward. It's all connected. Your movement, your meals, your rest, working together quietly in the background of your daily life. One last thought before we bring this all together. Progress with something like this rarely feels dramatic in the moment, and that trips people up more than anything else. You won't finish week 1 and suddenly feel like a different person. Real lasting strength builds the way trust builds in a relationship, quietly, through small, consistent actions repeated over time, until one day you notice it's simply there. Give yourself permission to move slowly. Give yourself permission to have an off day here and there without treating it as failure. The people who benefit most from something like this aren't the ones who do it perfectly every single day. They're the ones who simply come back to it, week after week, even after missing a day or two. That's what consistency actually looks like in real life. And it's more than enough. Let's bring this all together, because I want you to walk away from this video with something you can actually use starting tonight. Not just information that sounds nice but gets forgotten by tomorrow. Twice a day, once in the morning before you get out of bed, and once in the evening before you settle in for the night. Lie on your back and gently lift one leg at a time. Knee straight, toes relaxed, breathing out as you lift and in as you lower. Holding for 5 to 10 seconds, keeping your lower back pressed gently into the mattress the whole time. 8 to 10 lifts per leg. No rushing, no straining, just slow, intentional movement. Pair it with a bit more protein at each meal, good hydration throughout the day, and a bit more attention to your sleep. And you've built yourself a simple, realistic routine that supports the kind of leg strength that keeps you steady, confident, and independent for years to come. What I love most about this approach is that it asks so little of you, and yet may give back so much. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need special equipment. You don't need to carve out an hour of your day. You just need a few quiet minutes right there in your own bed morning and night. And over the weeks ahead, don't be surprised if you notice the small things first. Standing up without that little push, feeling steadier on the stairs, walking through a parking lot without that flicker of worry about uneven pavement. Those small moments are what real progress feels like, and they matter far more than any number on a scale or any step count goal ever could. I'd genuinely love to hear from you. If you try this tonight or tomorrow morning, come back and tell me how it felt in the comments. I read every single one, and there's something powerful about seeing so many people in this community supporting each other through these small, steady changes. If you know someone, a parent, a sibling, a friend, a neighbor, who could use a little more confidence in their legs and their balance, please share this video with them. It might be exactly the nudge they need. And if you found this helpful, go ahead and subscribe, because we've got so many more simple, practical, science-informed videos coming to help you stay strong, steady, and independent for many years ahead. Take care of those legs of yours. They've carried you this far. And with just a little bit of care, they'll keep carrying you for a long time to come.